Hello and welcome to the Otaku Network podcast. My name is Steve.
And I'm David.
And this is the fourth episode of Weekly Ranma. This episode is the introduction of Ryoga. We are shown Ryoga saving a town from a rampaging boar, just like we saw in the original version. He just kind of single-handedly defeats this, 600-pound wild beast with his umbrella, shocking the rural townsfolk. So he's trying to find Furiken High School. We cut to him, I think it was like a week later, and he is wandering the streets of Tokyo, and he sees a bunch of students, grabs the first one he sees, and asks him where Furiken is. And the guy just kind of points over to the sign and says, "You're here." And then he asks, "Do you know who Ranma Sawatome is?" And the guy then quickly introduces him to Ranma, at which point Ryoga attacks Ranma without any warning. Ranma has no idea who this dude is or why he's trying to fight him, until he expends a high level of brain power and realizes that this is a kid he went to middle school with, but he doesn't understand why he has a grudge against him. Something had happened, and Ryoga had challenged him to a fight, but Ranma waited for 3 days in the lot that they had decided on to fight, which was right around the corner from Ryoga's house, and Ryoga just never showed up. Ryoga was angry and frustrated with him because if he had waited 1 day longer, he had made it there and they would have fought. But Ryoga has this problem with directions. So it took him 4 days of getting lost and wandering around the greater Tokyo metropolitan area. And it took Ryoga 4 days of getting lost to get from his house to the empty lot, pretty much on the same block, to fight Ranma. And by then, Ranma was already gone. So Ryoga has been trying to track down Ranma this entire time. Perhaps, let's give him the benefit of the doubt. This happened in their third year of middle school. This is now the first year of high school. Half a year at the most, maybe. So he's finally found him.
How long were Genma and Ranma in China?
Yeah. Not that long.
Okay.
Not a couple months, maybe. So Ranma's trying to figure out what this kid's problem is, and keeps talking about how every time during lunch, because of how cutthroat the lunch counter service was for this all-boys middle school, Ranma continuously took the last food item by physically blocking Ryoga from getting it. So it really just stemmed from Ranma taking food from Ryoga's mouth at every chance he could, just to feed himself instead. So, the middle school lunch for the all-boys middle school was pretty much survival of the fittest at this point, and Ranma was more fit than Ryoga was. So Ryoga is challenging Ranma again. Ranma's not too concerned about it. He figures he's got some time to wait because Ryoga is terrible at keeping appointments on time, apparently. Proves true. Ends up battling him a week later. We find out that Ryoga's umbrella weighs maybe 120 pounds, and he flings it around one-handedly and throws it, and just Ryoga is...
And it does that little
the spin. Yeah. Ryoga's decked out with a lot of different weapons that serve multiple purposes.
Infinite bandanas.
Yeah. And the fight kind of rages throughout the school while everybody's watching in anticipation, and Ryoga learns that Ranma changes into a girl when splashed with water. Ryoga's attacks are relentless. Ranma doesn't really have any issue dealing with them, but Akane gets mixed into the fray, and Ranma does everything he can to protect her. But in the end, there's an attack that Ryoga does, that Ranma deflects, that almost cuts Akane's head off. Instead, it cuts her long hair off. That's where the episode ends. So in the original series, this episode spanned between episodes 7 and 8. So context, the first episode I ever watched of Ranma was episode 1 of season 3. Until I got around to actually watching the first season, I had only known short-haired Akane. So when I began the series many months later, from the beginning, long-haired Akane came as a surprise to me. And with every time I've watched, because I've watched this initial battle between Ranma and Ryoga countless times, and I've watched this episode of the remake twice at this point. Every time Akane's hair gets cut, it still hits me like a brick of emotion because it's such a dramatic moment. But with how quickly we're moving through the story, where we're essentially at a 2-to-1 pace at this point, I don't know if the gravitas of Akane's hair being cut comes through in the new version. Luckily, David has never seen this before. So what's your take on the importance and the weight of what happened to Akane in this conflict?
I mean, it's a huge character change.
So I can't remember where they did it This may come up in the next episode because I don't remember exactly where this all happened in the original series. So when Akane was a little kid, her hair was short. Mm-hmm. And she made the distinct choice to grow her hair out because of Dr. Tofu. Because she recognized that Dr. Tofu liked her older sister, Kasumi, and equated Kasumi having long hair as part of the thing that Dr. Tofu really liked. So Akane figured if she grew her hair long as well, that would help Dr. Tofu pay more attention to her and perhaps develop feelings for her.
Typical kid things.
Yeah, exactly.
Makes sense.
So another thing that I don't know how well it's coming across, what is your perspective of Ranma's feelings towards Akane and Akane's feelings towards Ranma at this point, given the situations that you've seen them in so far?
At this point, they're starting to actively care about each other's safety, and it's very obvious that they do, especially because Akane is just like, Ranma, be careful. He has his fist will kill you.
Yeah, he's super strong. You can't be within striking range of him. You got to fight him long distance.
Yeah.
The whole part right before her hair gets cut, where Ranma's in girl type form and he's using Ryoga's umbrella to deflect his attacks, and he's just trying to get Akane out of combat. And there's that moment where they've landed on the roof of the bike corral and they're just embracing each other in a moment of security and safety before embarrassment sets in and they kind of like, oh, what the hell?
Yeah.
So we have moments like that have existed before, like episode 3, when he's trying to console her when he realizes how dramatic
how heartbroken she is over Tofu.
Over Dr. Tofu, yeah. And I don't know.
Or when she gives him the piggyback ride when his legs fucking...
Yeah, when Dr. Tofu like sets him up.
Ninjutsu's his back.
Yeah. For me, because I just know this story so intimately, I don't know how strongly that's coming across now to you who doesn't know the story intimately, with how short this time frame has been and how we are missing out on some of these intimate moments between the two being a little bit more honest with each other. I don't know if that's coming through enough to you, though. It's hard to say.
I think you're being overly analytical because I very much understand that they care for each other.
Okay, all right. I can't tell.
I think
because I know all of this.
I think you're overanalyzing.
And I'm concerned that the pace of the show might be ruining some of that. That's my concern.
No, if this was... If it took 8 episodes to get to this point, I think I would just be like, come on. If it took 8 fucking episodes to introduce Ryoga.
Well, so this episode, like I said, was split between 2 episodes.
Right. If it took 8 episodes to get to this, I'd be like,
I do agree that the pacing is nice. Like I said, I'm just concerned that we're missing out on some of the deeper developments by how quickly it's moving.
I don't feel that at all.
Cool. I'm glad to hear.
I think you're a little worried.
Lay it right out. I'm super critical of Ranma because there's a lot about the story that's wrong, or a lot about the original series that was bad. It gets to a point in the show where it just should have stopped. Because it kept spinning its wheels and telling the same fucking story over and over and over again with no progression. But this story does mean a lot to me because of how integral it is to my formative years of anime fandom. I enjoy the depiction of the relationship building between Ranma and Akane because of how innocent and sweet and endearing it is. But then it gets distracted by martial arts contests, which are funny only so long.
I like the martial arts contests.
I don't think the series is going to go for 7 seasons, so I don't think it's going to get tiring.
Yeah, it'll just go for 3.5.
I'm thinking it might only be 2 seasons, but I don't know.
Fair. Maybe they'll just cut out a lot of the unnecessary shit. Boom. Akane and Ranma married. Done. I'm really enjoying the anime so far. I think you're worrying too much.
Well, it means a lot to me.
I know it does, but I am very much enjoying the anime.
So your thoughts on Ryoga? I think Ryoga is my favorite character.
Ryoga is the biggest dumbass I've ever met in my entire life. I know how to beat Ryoga. You just put a paper bag on his head, spin him around 3 times, and then you go, oh, where'd he go? Where did Ranma go? And then Ryoga will be like, I'm gonna go to Hokkaido, because that's obviously the way to Tokyo. But Ryoga, you're in Tokyo. No, I have to find Tokyo.
So what's funny in the original one is after Ryoga does the challenge to Ranma, Ryoga goes off. He gets lost again, obviously, like they showed. He ends up back at the village where he defeated the boar. And everybody's like, hey, welcome back. Did you get to Tokyo? He was like, yeah, but I got to get back again. They're like, oh, good luck with that. And the boar's in the communal house too. And they're all like, damn. It was pretty damn funny. I loved the new thing they added where the initial scene, it looked like he was being attacked in Europe. Where there was the blonde girl, like, oh my God.
Oh, yeah.
That was so funny.
Yeah, that was really funny.
Oh my God, that was hilarious.
The show's really good.
So there were two interesting things that were cut out of the fight between Ranma and Ryoga. So there was a subtext of the science club were taking advantage of the situation by planting explosives throughout the schoolyard in hopes of taking out Ranma so that Akane would be back on the menu for relationship status. And Nabiki was running numbers on who would win the fight between Ryoga and Ranma. She was like taking bets. And she was trying to psych up Ryoga in hopes that she could convince him to beat Ranma. There was a point where Ranma and Ryoga are fighting in the street, and Ryoga's like, I don't know why I can't beat him. And Nabiki shows up and she's like, here, take this. He's like, what's this? It's steroids. It'll make you stronger. She gave him acetaminophen. He like pops the pills. He's like, I could feel it working. He like rips a street sign, rips a concrete or metal light pole out of the ground and starts swinging it at Ranma. The fight then travels into a zoo, which is where all the thing with him like flipping around his headman's head. Like the class, everybody ends up at a zoo. That's where Akane's hair gets cut and everything. But there's a point where Genma is in panda form. I think he was doing some work for Dr. Tofu and gets picked up by animal control and sent to the zoo. And you cut to the end of the episode and Genma's just chilling as a panda in the panda enclosure at the zoo. We missed some fun stuff by them shutting it out. But
Genma
it wasn't
is a panda a lot.
Genma loves being in panda form.
Okay.
Absolutely loves being in panda form.
Because when they're having that breakfast, I just think it's funny as he's like drinking the tea and doing the.
Yep. Yes. He loves being in panda form.
See that.
I can't wait for next week's episode. That's going to be great. It's going to be.
I look forward to the show.
Yeah. We're gonna get some more Ryoga next week.
Good.
After episode 5, I think episode 6 will introduce another character, which will be interesting given who the character is. But I'm not going to spoil anything. But yeah, episode 5 should be. Yeah, it's going to be a good episode. It's going to be a great episode. All right. Thank you for listening. Don't forget the regular podcast that comes out on Wednesdays, where we're reviewing 3 shows that are brand new for the season. Suma Shogakuse Ninaru, Bloomy Burrow, and Orb on the Movements of Earth. Yeah. So like, subscribe, comment. Let us know what you think about the pacing of the series. And if you are familiar with the original series, what your thoughts are on how quickly they're moving through the story compared to the original one.
Team fast anime or team slow anime? We're forming lots of teams this week.
Mappa is doing such a good job with this. The artwork is amazing. I love the stylistic changes during the combat sequences. I loved the intro. Okay, so my original exposure to Ranma was I was reading some gaming magazine in like 91 or 92. No, maybe it was 93. And the SNES Ranma fighting game was being ported into America. This was a little bit before the anime was even available in America. It was kind of like a weird timing thing. And I distinctly remember the article going through the premise of Ranma with, the changing through water and back. And I always thought that was an interesting concept. I'm like, okay, cool. And then a couple of years later, when I'm like super deep in anime, Ranma had always existed in the back of my head since reading that article about the fighting game.
Is that why at the beginning of this week's episode, there was the reference to the NES?
They were referencing the original fighting game. I loved it. Chef's Kiss.
There it is.
Yep. It was great. So
did you play the Ranma?
No, I never played it. Never owned an SNES. Never played it.
Now I just want to know if that's how the game was.
It was a fighter a la, like Street Fighter 2 style thing. Okay. So cool. That's pretty much what the game was like.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. No.
That's all I needed to know.
That was I loved that they did that. I was so happy to see that.
Now we need to find an NES so I can kick your ass as Genma.
SNES, but yeah. All right. Thanks again for listening.
Like, comment, subscribe.
Yep.
Do all that stuff. Ring that bell.
Yeah, definitely. And don't forget, regular podcasts on Wednesdays, weekly Ranma on Fridays. And we will see you next time.